I think behavioral health has been underestimating one of its most powerful treatments. And surprisingly, it isn't a therapy technique. It isn't a worksheet. It isn't even an evidence-based modality. It's human connection. Not because connection simply feels good, because I've watched a single genuine relationship completely change someone's recovery trajectory more times than I can count. And after nearly a decade of working in behavioral health, I don't think that's a coincidence. By the end of this video, I want to explain why I believe human connection isn't just something nice that happens during treatment. I believe it's one of the most overlooked clinical interventions we have. And that's one of the greatest strengths of residential treatment that every behavioral health program can learn from. Hi, I'm Mariana, founder of Inward Bloom Wellness. Over the past decade, I've had the privilege of leading programming in residential treatment, PHP, IOP, primary mental health, substance use, and eating disorder programs. I've watched thousands of groups, and somewhere along the way, I realized something that completely changed how we think about healing. The moments I remember most weren't when a therapist had the perfect intervention. They weren't when someone completed another worksheet. They weren't even when someone had a breakthrough in an individual therapy session. The moments I remember most were when one client looked at another and simply said, "Me too. I've been there. You're gonna get through this." Those moments changed how I think about recovery. Residential treatment is like a living laboratory. One of the things I admire most about residential treatment is that people don't just simply attend therapy together. They live together, eat meals together, laugh together, cry together, celebrate milestones together, support one another, and they're almost always going to trigger one another. At first, that sounds like a problem, but I actually think it's one of residential treatment's greatest strengths, because treatment doesn't just help people recover from symptoms, it gives people a safe place to discover how they show up in relationships. Many of the patterns clients struggle with outside treatment don't disappear when they enter a facility. They show up. Maybe someone isolates. Maybe someone avoids conflict. Maybe someone shuts down emotionally. Maybe someone becomes overly responsible for everyone else's recovery. Maybe someone assumes they're being judged before anyone has judged them. Maybe someone keeps people at arm's length because that's how they've learned to stay safe. Those aren't things you always discover through conversation alone. You discover them by living alongside other people. Relationships become mirrors. Not mirrors meant to shame us, but mirrors that gently show us patterns we've carried for years. And once we can finally see those patterns, we can begin to change them. Healing happens in between sessions. One of the most beautiful things I've witnessed is what happens when someone finally connects with one other person. Not 10 people, just one. Sometimes it starts with a simple conversation after group, a shared meal, a walk outside, someone saying, "I felt exactly what you're feeling." Suddenly, the walls start coming down, they begin to participate more, they're more willing to be vulnerable, they start encouraging other people, they smile more, hope returns. I've watched clients who barely spoke during their first week become some of the strongest leaders in their treatment community by discharge. Not because they suddenly became different people, but because they experienced something many hadn't experienced in years: belonging. And when people begin to feel like they belong, recovery starts to feel possible. Why connection is clinical. I think this is where we sometimes underestimate what we're witnessing. We often think of connection as something positive that happens alongside treatment. I don't think that's what it is. I think connection is part of the treatment, because relationships are where many of our clients learned fear, rejection, distrust, abandonment, shame, isolation. So it makes sense that relationships can also become the place where they learn something different: trust, acceptance, boundaries, repair, safety, and hope. That's not replacing evidence-based therapy. It's giving clients the opportunity to practice what they're learning in real life. They're not just talking about communication, they're communicating. They're not just discussing boundaries, they're setting them. They're not just learning about trust, they're slowly rebuilding it. That kind of learning can't happen from information alone. It happens through experience. And this can be brought beyond residential. Now, obviously, not every client is in residential treatment, but I think every level of care can learn something from this. Whether you're running a PHP, IOP, outpatient, or even an employee wellness program, the question becomes, how intentionally are we creating opportunities for genuine human connection? Not just delivering information, creating experiences where people feel seen, where they feel understood, where they feel safe enough to participate, because those experiences change people. So in conclusion, one of the greatest lessons I've learned in behavioral health is this: people don't just heal by talking about relationships. They heal by experiencing healthy ones. Healing doesn't happen simply because clients are surrounded by people. Healing happens because often, for the first time in a very long time, they're surrounded by people who truly understand what they're going through. That creates safety. That creates belonging. That creates hope. Sometimes the most powerful intervention isn't what happens between a therapist and a client. It's what happens between two clients who finally realize, I'm not alone anymore. I think that's one of the most overlooked clinical interventions we have. If you're a facility owner, executive director, clinical director, or program leader thinking about how to create treatment environments that foster deep engagement and meaningful human connection, I'd love to continue the conversation. You can schedule a consultation using the Zoom link in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.